I'd been sitting in that hospital cafeteria since 6 that morning, watching snow pile up in the parking lot through windows smudged with fingerprints. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I kept my hands wrapped around the cup anyway. Gave me something to hold on to. 44 years, Helen and I had been married. Through Vietnam and layoffs and her cancer scare back in '98, I'd never once been told I couldn't see her. But when I got off that elevator and walked down the corridor to room 512, Dr. Reeves was standing in the doorway with a clipboard pressed to his chest like a shield. "I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "But your wife requested privacy for this examination." And through the gap in the door, I could see Helen's face turning toward me. Her mouth opened. Then the door clicked shut. That's when I knew something was wrong. The security guard appeared at the end of the hallway about 30 seconds later. I was still standing there, staring at that closed door, trying to figure out when I'd stopped being her husband. "Everything okay, Mr. Brennan?" His hand wasn't near his radio yet, but it would be. "I need to see my wife." "Doctor's orders, sir, where?" "I'm sure it won't be long." He walked me back to the waiting room like I was some kind of problem that needed managing. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, that electrical buzz that gets into your teeth. I sat down in one of those plastic chairs, the kind that's hard against your back no matter how you shift, and watched the wall clock tick through 20 minutes, then 30, then 45. Other families came and went. A woman about my age with her 2 grown daughters, all of them laughing about something as they headed into a room down the hall. A younger couple, the husband carrying balloons that said, "Get well soon," in cheerful letters that seemed obscene in this place. Everyone else had people, everyone else got to go in. I was alone with a 3-month-old copy of Field and Stream and a wedding ring that kept clicking against the armrest every time I shifted my weight. The security guard passed by again, paused. "You doing okay, sir?" The way he said it wasn't really asking. I picked up the magazine, pretended to read an article about walleye fishing in Minnesota. The words might as well have been in Chinese. That's when I noticed the woman across from me. Gray hair, cardigan, a casserole dish wrapped in foil on the seat beside her. She'd been watching me. When our eyes met, she didn't look away. "How's Helen today, Earl?" Martha Hendricks, our neighbor. I hadn't even seen her come in. "They won't let me in to find out." Something flickered across her face. Not surprise. Something else. But before she could say anything, Dr. Reeves came walking out of Helen's room with a manila folder under his arm. He was young, maybe 38, 40 at most. The kind of doctor who wore expensive shoes, I noticed that right off. Polished leather, probably cost more than my truck payment. And his watch caught the light when he moved. One of those fancy Swiss jobs. When he saw me, his expression changed. "Practice sympathy, the kind you put on like a coat. Mr. Brennan?" He sat down next to me, opened the folder. "I owe you an explanation." The papers inside were covered in graphs and numbers that didn't mean anything to me. Red zones. Danger markers. Medical terminology I'd need a dictionary to understand. "Your wife's test results came back this morning," he said, talking slow like I was hard of hearing. "These readings aren't consistent with normal human parameters." I looked at the graphs. Something about them bothered me. The way the lines were too smooth, too perfect. 40 years running a machine shop teaches you to spot when something doesn't fit right. When the tolerances are off? What does that mean? It means we're dealing with unprecedented cellular markers. "I won't lie to you, Mr. Brennan. Her condition is extremely serious, but there's an experimental treatment trial we can offer. Limited slots available." He pulled out more papers, a consent form. Signature line already highlighted in yellow. "I'd like to see Helen first. Ask her what she wants. She's resting from the examination. But Mr. Brennan, we need a decision today." "This trial?" "Dad," I turned. David was walking across the waiting room, and I hadn't heard from him in 3 years. Not since that argument about selling the farm, about how I was wasting the land's value by actually living on it. "I came as soon as I could," he said, and pulled me into a hug that felt like shaking hands with a stranger. He smelled like expensive cologne and looked like he'd just come from some business meeting. New suit, new haircut, not the son I remembered. "The hospital called you?" "Of course they did." "Mom's sick, Dad." "I'm family." Behind him, a woman in hospital scrubs appeared. Pretty, professional, her badge said Administrative Services. She kissed David on the cheek. "This is Stephanie, my wife." I'd never met her. Didn't know he'd gotten married. Reeves was still holding the consent form. "Mr. Brennan, I understand this is overwhelming, but the treatment window—" "Dad, just sign it." David's hand landed on my shoulder, heavy. "Mom would want every chance, right? We can't just give up." When I looked at the papers again, tried to read the fine print, but David was standing too close, and the doctor was talking about unprecedented markers and limited time, and my son kept saying, "We don't have much time, Dad." So I signed. Dr. Reeves took the papers so fast you'd think they might catch fire if you waited. We'll begin treatment tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. He shook my hand. His grip was firm, confident, and walked away. Those expensive shoes clicking on the linoleum. David hugged me again. You did the right thing, Dad. Mom's going to be okay. But when I looked up, I saw him and Stephanie exchange a glance, quick, knowing, and Dr. Reeves was looking back at them from down the hallway. Something about it felt wrong. Martha was still sitting across from me, the casserole dish in her lap. She caught my eye and gave a tiny shake of her head, so small I almost missed it. Earl, she said quietly, you need to come by my house tonight. I need to show you something. David's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. I have to go, Dad. Work thing. But I'll be back tomorrow for the treatment. After he left, I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. And tucked in my coat pocket was a copy of the consent form Dr. Reeves had given me. I pulled it out, started actually reading it this time. Paragraph 7, buried in the legal language. Patient agrees to asset liquidation protocols to cover treatment costs, exceeding insurance coverage limits. Asset liquidation. My phone buzzed. Text from David. Dad, we should talk about the farm. Property taxes are due March 1st. Just want to help you plan. I sat there in that plastic chair, holding papers I'd signed without reading, and realized I just made a terrible mistake. I didn't sleep that night. Kept reading those consent forms over and over at my kitchen table while the coffee pot percolated and the house creaked in the cold. Helen's reading glasses were still on the side table where she'd left them, her coffee mug in the sink, lipstick print on the rim. I couldn't bring myself to wash it. The fine print got worse the more I read it. Treatment costs estimated between $45,000 and $120,000, and insurance may cover partial expenses. Authorization for necessary financial arrangements, including but not limited to property liens, estate access, and asset conversion. I looked around the kitchen. This house. This land. 120 acres that had been Brennan property since 1947, my grandfather's farm. My father died in the bedroom upstairs. My phone lit up again. Another text from David, sent at 2 a.m. Can't sleep thinking about Mom. Let's talk tomorrow about getting your affairs in order, just in case. Love you, Dad. Just in case. I made it back to the hospital by 7 the next morning. The cafeteria wasn't open yet, so I sat in my truck in the parking lot and watched my breath fog the windshield. The heater had been making a grinding noise for the past month, another thing I hadn't gotten around to fixing. David was waiting in the cafeteria when I finally went in. He had a leather folder spread out on a table and 2 cups of coffee that probably cost $5 each. Stephanie sat beside him, her hospital badge catching the light. Dad? Good, you're here. We need to handle some paperwork before Mom's treatment starts. What kind of paperwork? He slid a document across the table. Power of attorney. Helen's signature at the bottom, dated 2 weeks ago. When did she sign this? Last time I visited? She was having a good day, wanted to make sure things were handled properly if she got worse. I stared at that signature. Helen had been barely conscious 2 weeks ago. Couldn't hold a pen steady. Couldn't remember what year it was half the time. I don't remember you visiting. It was brief. You were getting coffee. David's jaw tightened, just a fraction. The point is, Dad, if Mom becomes unable to make medical decisions, someone needs legal authority. And with her treatment starting today, I'm her husband. Of course you are. But this is just a formality. For the hospital. For insurance. He pushed another document toward me. And this makes me executor of the estate. Standard stuff. Protects you both. Stephanie leaned forward. Her voice was gentle. Professional. Mr. Brennan, I work in hospital administration. I see families go through this all the time. These documents just ensure smooth processing. No delays in care. I picked up the power of attorney. Read it closer. Buried in Section 3, agent authorized to make decisions regarding real property, financial assets, estate liquidation, and residential placement. Residential placement. That meant nursing homes. I'm not signing this. David's expression changed. The concern slipped, just for a second, and what I saw underneath was something harder. Dad, don't be difficult. Mom needs this treatment today. The window will stay open while I think about it. Actually, Stephanie started, then caught herself, glanced at David. Actually what? Silence. Then David stood up. Fine, think about it, but don't take too long. Mom's life is on the line. And he walked away. Stephanie followed, but not before I saw her whisper something to him. His shoulders tensed. I sat there with the papers, reading every word this time. My phone rang. Martha. Earl, are you at the hospital? Yeah. Don't sign anything. Can you come by my house? Now? They're starting Helen's treatment at 8. Earl. Her voice was firm. Steal under that grandmother kindness. This is important, please. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Martha's kitchen. She had her table covered with newspaper clippings, obituaries, all of them cut out neat, organized by date. I've been collecting these for 5 years, she said, pouring coffee from a percolator that probably dated back to the 70s. The smell filled the kitchen. Real coffee, not that hospital dishwater. Ever since Carolyn died. Carolyn, her daughter, I'd gone to the funeral. She was a nurse, I said. She was a patient. Cardiac ward. Same wing where Helen is now. Martha spread the obituaries across the table like she was dealing cards. 14 of them. I read the names, dates, all of them over 65. All of them died within weeks of each other, spread across 3 years. And every single death certificate had the same signature at the bottom, Dr. Marcus Reeves. Look at the language, Martha said. She pointed to one obituary, then another. Unprecedented cellular markers, experimental treatment complications, cardiac failure despite aggressive intervention. The same phrases, over and over, like someone had used a template. My Carolyn was healthy before they admitted her. Chest pains, they said. Nothing serious? Then Dr. Reeves started his trial. Martha's hands shook as she poured cream into her coffee. 3 weeks later, she was dead. They cremated her within 48 hours. No autopsy. Said it wasn't necessary. My phone rang. The hospital. I let it go to voicemail. There's more, Martha said. She pulled out an insurance document. Dolores, you know her from Bridge Club. Her husband died in that same ward last year. Insurance policy was for $100,000. She got $50,000. Hospital kept the rest for treatment costs. That can't be legal. It is if you sign the consent forms. She looked at me hard. Did you sign something yesterday, Earl? I nodded. Did you read it all? I shook my head. Martha picked up her phone. Dolores, it's Martha. Can you come over? Bring Gerald's paperwork. Yes, now. It's happening again. While we waited, I pulled out my copy of the consent form. Found the trial name buried in paragraph 4, MedTech Solutions Protocol 7. Martha typed it into her computer. Google came back with nothing. No pharmaceutical company. No FDA registration. No clinical trial database entry. It didn't exist. Dolores arrived 15 minutes later with an accordion folder full of documents. She was crying before she even sat down. Gerald was fine, she said. Just some irregular heartbeats. They said the trial would fix it. 3 weeks later, her voice broke. I couldn't even see him at the end. They said he was too agitated, needed sedation. I never got to say goodbye. She spread out the paperwork. Consent forms identical to mine. Insurance statements showing the same $50,000 administrative deduction. And the trial name, MedTech Solutions Protocol 7. My phone buzzed. Another text from David. Dad, treatment needs to start. Dr. Reeves says we can't wait. Where are you? Martha put her hand over mine. Earl, they're going to kill Helen, and they're going to take your farm while they do it. The percolator hissed on the stove. Outside, a crow cawed in the bare trees. My wedding ring caught the morning light coming through Martha's kitchen window. 44 years. And now I had to choose between trusting the doctors or believing my wife was in danger. My phone rang again. The hospital. This time I answered. Mr. Brennan, this is Dr. Reeves. We need to begin your wife's treatment immediately. Where are you? I'm coming, but I need to see Helen first. I need to ask her if she wants this. A pause. Too long. That won't be possible. She's already been sedated for the procedure. I didn't authorize sedation. Your son did, under the power of attorney. I never signed that. Actually, Mr. Brennan, the hospital has your wife's signature, authorizing your son as medical proxy. It's valid. The treatment is beginning now. You can visit during posted hours, 6 to 7 p.m. The line went dead. I looked at Martha and Dolores, at the obituaries spread across the table, at the insurance forms showing people being robbed while they died. I need to go back, I said. Earl, I need to see her, even if it's just 1 hour. But when I got to the hospital, there were 2 security guards waiting at the entrance, and they had a court order with my name on it. The court order was dated that morning. Emergency Patient Protection Directive. David's lawyer had filed it at 8 a.m., claiming I was emotionally unstable and interfering with necessary medical care. The judge had signed it without ever talking to me. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, the security guard said. He looked like he meant it. You're restricted to 1 supervised visit per week, 30 minutes, Saturdays at 2 p.m. That's 6 days from now. Yes, sir. She's my wife. I understand, but this is a court order. If you try to enter, I'll have to call the police. I stood there in the parking lot while the February wind cut through my coat. My phone buzzed. A lawyer's office I'd found in the yellow pages. Mr. Brennan, overturning this kind of order requires an appeals process. Weeks, maybe months. and I'd need a $5,000 retainer to start. My checking account had $3,400 in it. That had to last until my pension check came through next month. I hung up, sat in my truck, watched the hospital windows trying to figure out which one was Helen's room. That's when I decided to wait. I moved the truck to the far corner of the parking lot where the security cameras didn't quite reach, wrapped myself in the emergency blanket I kept behind the seat. The heater was shot, so I just sat there in the cold, watching. Midnight came and went. The hospital lights dimmed. A few cars in the parking lot, staff working night shifts. I dozed off around 1 a.m., woke up at 2 when someone knocked on the window. Maria from the cafeteria. She didn't say anything, just set a thermos of coffee on the hood, and walked away. I drank it, black and bitter and perfect. Watched my breath fog the windshield. 3 a.m. That's when Dr. Reeves's car pulled into the parking lot. That expensive sedan. He went in through a side entrance, the one marked medical staff only. 10 minutes later, Stephanie came out the same door. She looked around, checking to make sure nobody was watching, then met Dr. Reeves in the shadows between two wings of the building. I crouched lower in the truck. They were too far away to hear, but I could see them. The way she handed him a folder. The way he checked the contents, then nodded. The way they both looked nervous. The exchange took maybe 4 minutes. Then Stephanie went back inside. Dr. Reeves stood there for a moment, looking at whatever was in that folder. Then he walked to his car, got in, and drove away. I sat there until dawn, trying to make sense of what I'd seen. My blood pressure monitor, the one Helen had made me start wearing after my last checkup, kept flashing red. 170 over 105, too high. Around 6, I drove to Martha's house. She took one look at me and made me lie down on her couch. "Your blood pressure is going to kill you before they do," she said, forcing pills and water into my hands. "When's the last time you ate?" I couldn't remember. She made eggs and toast while I told her about the court order, about Stephanie and Dr. Reeves meeting at 3 in the morning. "They're panicking," Martha said. "You disrupted their timeline." Her doorbell rang, Dolores carrying another folder. "I called everyone from Bridge Club," she said. "Asked them to check their families. Earl, we found 6 more cases in the last 3 years. All of them cardiac ward. All of them Dr. Reeves." She spread out the new obituaries. Different families. Same pattern, same language. Bee's brother-in-law, Louise's sister, Carol's husband. Dolores's voice shook. All of them over 65. All of them died within 3 weeks of starting that trial. Martha pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. "Look at the dates. The deaths accelerate around budget reporting time. March, June, September, December. Every quarter." They're timing it," I said. "They're optimizing revenue." Martha's voice was cold. "And they're targeting people like us, elderly, fewer visitors, families that trust doctors." My phone buzzed. Hospital number. I didn't answer. Voicemail. "Mr. Brennan, this is Dr. Reeves. We've begun your wife's treatment protocol. She's responding well. You can see her during your scheduled visit this Saturday." I looked at Martha and Dolores, at the obituaries covering the table like fallen leaves. "I need to get inside. I need to see what they're doing to her." "You can't," Dolores said. "The court order. Then I need someone on the inside." That's when my truck windshield wiper moved. I'd parked it in Martha's driveway. There was no wind, nobody around. I went outside. Under the wiper was a note, folded twice, handwritten. They falsified her test results. "The trial doesn't exist. Asked to see the real chart. A friend." I looked around. The street was empty. But someone had been watching. Someone knew. "Who left this?" Martha asked. "I don't know. But they're on the inside." The note had more. At the bottom, in different ink, like it had been added later. "Room 407, Mrs. Chen. They started the same protocol on her yesterday. You have 48 hours to stop them. Mrs. Chen." I didn't know her, but she was next. My phone buzzed again. This time, a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hospital pharmacy, 4 p.m. today. Ask for Gary. He can't say much, but he'll help." I showed Martha. "It's a trap," Dolores said. "Or it's someone with a conscience." Martha looked at me. "You going?" "I don't have a choice." But first I needed to try one more time to see Helen, court order or not. I had 1 hour of access, 6 to 7 p.m. They couldn't stop me during that window. I got to the hospital at 5:45. Security was waiting. "Not till 6, Mr. Brennan." I sat in the lobby. Watched the clock. Other families coming and going. A young couple with a newborn, visiting the grandmother. An old man in a wheelchair. His daughter pushing him toward the elevators. Everyone else got to be with their people. At exactly 6 o'clock p.m., I stood up. "Room 512, I said. The security guard nodded. 30 minutes. I'll be outside the door." Helen's room was at the end of the corridor. The lights were dimmed. Machines beeped in rhythm. She was in the bed, Tubes running everywhere. More tubes than 3 days ago. Her eyes were closed. Helen? I took her hand. Honey, it's me. Her eyes opened, slowly, like she was fighting through fog. Earl? I'm here. Her grip was weak, her voice barely a whisper. Earl, the papers. When they made me sign, I couldn't. What papers, honey? My hand wouldn't move right. Her eyes were struggling to focus. I tried to tell them, tried to say no. The door opened. A nurse I didn't recognize. Young, efficient, no nameplate. Mrs. Brennan needs her medication. She's talking to me. We have time. Doctor's orders. She needs rest. The nurse prepared an injection. Helen saw it. Her grip on my hand tightened. No, she whispered. Earl, I want to talk. I need to tell you. The nurse injected it into the IV port. Within seconds, Helen's eyes started to lose focus. What did you give her? Pain management. Standard. Protocol. But Helen hadn't been in pain. She'd been trying to tell me something. Earl. Her voice was slurring now. David, he was there. When they made me... Her eyes closed. Her hand went limp in mine. Helen? Helen. The security guard stepped into the doorway. Mr. Brennan, I need you to keep your voice down. What did she give my wife? Sir, please. She was conscious. She was talking. Now she's... Your time is up. You need to leave. We still have 15 minutes. Doctor's orders? The medication requires rest. 2 security guards now, one on each side of me. Gentle but firm hands on my shoulders. I looked back at Helen as they walked me out. The IV bag hanging above her bed. I could read the label from here. Midazolam, 5 millivolts per hour. I knew that drug. Helen's doctor back home had explained it once. It wasn't for pain. It was for sedation. They were keeping her unconscious. The pharmacy was in the basement. I found it at 3:58 p.m. Gave myself 2 minutes to figure out what I was going to say. Gary was exactly what I expected. Middle-aged guy with tired eyes and a name tag that had been laminated so many times the letters were starting to fade. He was counting pills into orange bottles with the kind of precision that comes from doing something 10,000 times. Help you? I'm Earl Brennan. Someone told me you might be able to answer some questions about my wife's medications. And his hands stopped moving, just for a second. Then he went back to counting. Sir, I can't discuss patient medications without proper authorization. The trial she's in, MedTech Solutions Protocol 7, is that registered? He set down the pill bottle, looked at me for a long moment. Sir, all pharmaceutical trials must be FDA registered and IRB approved. That's federal law. Another pause, longer this time. If they're not registered, someone should probably report that. He picked up a prescription pad, wrote something down, slid it across the counter. State Medical Board, 1-800. The rest was a phone number. I pocketed it. Have you seen anything irregular in the cardiac wing prescriptions? Gary's face stayed neutral, but his eyes moved to a filing cabinet in the corner, marked discrepancy reports. I've seen a lot of things over the years, Mr. Brennan. I'm not allowed to say what. That was all I was going to get. I thanked him and left. When I got back to my truck, there was another note under the wiper. This one had a photocopy attached. Patient medication order for Helen Brennan, room 512. The drug names meant nothing to me. But at the bottom, handwritten, these aren't trial drugs. They're sedatives and saline, placebos. She's not being treated. She's being managed toward death. Oh, the photocopy had a watermark. Nursing station copy, RT. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper. Whoever RT was, they were risking everything to tell me this. I sat in that truck until midnight. Called Martha, told her what I'd learned. She said she'd call her contact at the state health department, an inspector whose mother had taught school with her for 30 years. His name is Paul Dykstra, she said. He's one of the good ones. If anyone can help, it's him. At 11:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I'm the nurse leaving notes. We need to talk. Parking lot D, midnight. I called Martha. Someone wants to meet, says she's the nurse. Want me to come? Yeah. We sat in my truck in the darkest corner of the lot, empty except for a few employee vehicles. At 12:02, someone tapped on the window. Young woman, Latina, scrubs, eyes that looked like she hadn't slept in days. She got in the back seat without being asked. Martha turned around to look at her. I'm Rebecca Torres. I'm the one who's been leaving you notes. Her voice was shaking. Hell, her whole body was shaking. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because my grandfather died in this hospital last year. Same trial, same lies. And she pulled a folder from her backpack. And because I can't watch them do it again. She handed me the folder. Inside were medical chart copies. 2 versions for Helen, side by side. Real chart? Cardiac decline consistent with terminal diagnosis. Nothing abnormal, no unusual markers. Falsified chart, impossible readings, test dates that didn't match, trial medications listed that the pharmacy had never dispensed. The numbers weren't just different, they were invented. Dr. Reeves inputs false data, Rebecca said. Orders placebos from the pharmacy. Bills insurance for experimental treatment at $15,000 per week. Martha leaned forward. How many nurses know about this? Some suspect, nobody speaks, we're contractors, at-will employment. The blacklist is real. She showed us more papers. A timeline of Helen's medications. Sedatives increasing every 48 hours. Creating organ stress. Accelerating decline. This is murder, I said. It's managed death. Slow enough to look natural. Fast enough to hit quarterly revenue targets. Rebecca's voice cracked. Helen has maybe 3 weeks if the protocol continues. Can you stop the medications? I can reduce dosages on night shift. Buy time. But I can't stop them completely. Override alerts would flag the system. She handed me a USB drive. Every falsified chart I could copy. 14 patients, all dead. Why are you doing this? Martha asked. You'll lose your license. My grandfather asked for my grandmother at the end. They wouldn't let her in. Said he was agitated, needed sedation. Tears now, real ones. She never got to say goodbye. Because they were killing him and didn't want witnesses. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She looked at it and went pale. Hospital alert. System flagged after-hours chart access. They're going to check who was logged in. What does that mean? It means I'm done. If they review the logs, I'm fired. Probably arrested. She opened the door, paused. Room 407, Mrs. Chen. They started the protocol on her this afternoon. You have maybe 72 hours before it's irreversible for both of them. Then she was gone, disappearing into the darkness. Martha and I sat there with that USB drive between us. We need Paul Dykstra, she said. Tonight. She called him at 1 a.m., put it on speaker. Martha? His voice was thick with sleep. It's the middle of the... Paul, it's happening again. That hospital, the cardiac deaths, we have evidence, violence. Then, I've been watching that place for 6 months. What? Automated mortality tracking flagged the cardiac wing last summer. I opened an investigation. They stonewalled me, provided cherry-picked records, claimed privacy protections, buried me in legal motions. As we have an inside source, as I said, a nurse. She has the real charts. I need a family member to file a formal complaint. That gives me subpoena authority, emergency injunction power. Without it, I'm hamstrung by hospital cooperation requirements. What happens when I file? They'll retaliate, court orders, access restrictions. They'll try to declare you incompetent, get your son appointed guardian. I thought about David, about that text at 2 a.m., about him checking his watch in the hospital cafeteria. My son's working with them. Paul was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Brennan, if you file this complaint, you'll lose access to your wife while the investigation proceeds. It could be 48 hours before I can get an emergency hearing. 2 days. Helen alone with them. How many people will die if I don't? More. I looked at Martha. She nodded. Tell me what to do. Get to a 24-hour office supply store. Make copies of everything. Multiple sets. Mail one to me. Keep one. Give one to a lawyer if you can afford one. We drove to an all-night Kinko's. Made 5 copies of the USB drive. Addressed one to Paul Dykstra, one to the state medical board, one to the local newspaper. Martha labeled them. If anything happens to you, these go out. And it was 3:30 a.m. when we got back to the hospital parking lot. I had to see Helen's room. Had to know she was still there. That's when I saw them. David and another man, business suit, standing outside the hospital cafeteria, visible through the windows. Even at this distance, I recognized the man. The land developer who'd been emailing David about the farm. I got out of the truck, moved closer, found a spot where I could hear through a ventilation duct. Need to close by March 15th, the developer was saying. Financing contingent on that date. Dad doesn't know I've already signed intent to sell. David's voice, casual, like he was discussing the weather. Stephanie appeared with papers. Based on current medication protocol, resolution expected March 2nd through 5th. Resolution? The developer looked confused. Your mother's death? Natural causes. Heart failure complications, expected with her condition. They were discussing Helen's death like a business transaction, scheduling it. And the old man? The developer asked. David laughed. Actually laughed. These guys usually fold within 6 months after. Nursing home or worse. They were planning my death too, or my disposal. Stephanie showed more papers. Hospital social services can recommend facilities. We'll handle placement. My vision blurred, blood pounding in my ears. The parking lot tilted. I walked straight to that cafeteria, opened the door. All 3 of them turned. March 2nd, I said. That's when you've scheduled her death. David's face went white. Dad, you don't under... You're waiting for me to die so you can sell my father's land. The developer stepped back, uncomfortable. This isn't what it looks like, Stephanie started. It looks like you're planning to kill my wife and warehouse me in a nursing home so you can subdivide 120 acres into luxury homes. I turned to David, looked him in the eye. I raised you better than this. I didn't. This is business. You don't understand modern... I understand you're waiting for your mother to die. I heard you. Resolution expected March 2nd. That's what you called it. Resolution. I walked out. My hands were steady now. The shaking was gone. Went straight to my truck. It was 4:47 a.m. The State Medical Board complaint office opened at 8 a.m. At 8:02, I was first in line. I filed the complaint. All of it. Falsified records, insurance fraud, 14 deaths, Rebecca's evidence, the USB drive. The woman behind the desk read it, looked up at me. Mr. Brennan, you understand this will trigger an investigation? Yes, ma'am. And the hospital will likely seek to restrict your access to your wife? I understand. And she stamped the form. You're a brave man. I wasn't brave. I was just out of options. By noon, the hospital's lawyers had filed an emergency motion to ban me completely. By 2 p.m., I had a court summons for a psychiatric evaluation. By 4 p.m., David had filed for full guardianship, claiming I was mentally unstable and a danger to Helen's care. The war was on. The court order arrived by certified mail the next morning. I was still at Martha's house. Hadn't been home in 2 days. She'd set me up in the guest room, been monitoring my blood pressure every 4 hours, like I was one of her third graders who needed watching. Emergency Patient Protection Directive. David's motion granted. I was banned from the hospital except for one supervised visit per week, 30 minutes, starting Saturday, 5 days away. The judge's reasoning was right there in black and white. Family conflict interfering with patient care. Father's erratic behavior creating hostile environment for medical staff. And I'd never even gotten to speak to the judge. They're boxing you out, Martha said. She was reading over my shoulder, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Classic strategy. Isolate the patient, control the narrative. I called the lawyer from the Yellow Pages, the one who'd wanted $5,000 up front. Brennan, overturning an emergency order like this? We're talking appeals process. Weeks minimum, probably months. And I'd need that retainer just to file the paperwork. My bank account, $3,400. His retainer, $5,000. What if I represent myself? You can try, but you're going up against a hospital legal team and your son's lawyer. Without representation. He paused. I'm sorry, sir. I wish I could help. I hung up. Sat there at Martha's kitchen table with cold coffee and a legal system that had locked me out of my own wife's room. I need to see her, I said. Court order or not. Earl, just to know she's still alive. I drove to the hospital at 10 a.m. The security guard saw me coming and stepped in front of the entrance. Mr. Brennan, not unkind, just firm. You're on the restricted list. I need to see my wife. Your next authorized visit is Saturday at 2 p.m., 5 days from now. She could be dead in 5 days. Something flickered across his face. Sympathy, maybe, but he had a job to do. I'm sorry, sir. If you attempt to enter, I'm required to call the police. I stood there on the sidewalk. 44 years of marriage, and I couldn't even walk through the door. My phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca. They increased Helen's sedation after you filed complaint. She's unconscious constantly now. I'm reducing what I can on night shift. I'm so sorry. And I got back in my truck. Just sat there. Engine running. Heater doing nothing. My blood pressure monitor flashed red. 185/112. That's when Paul Dykstra called. Earl, the complaint triggered an automatic investigation. Medical board review is scheduled. When? 8 days from now. 8 days. Rebecca said Helen had 3 weeks on the current protocol, but they'd increased it. How long did she have now? There's something else, Paul said. The hospital filed a countersuit against you. Harassment, defamation, interference with medical care. What does that mean? It means if they win, you could owe them legal fees. 6 figures potentially. He paused. And they're claiming you're mentally unstable. They've requested a psychiatric evaluation. Court ordered. If you don't pass, they can declare me incompetent. Yes, and if that happens, David gets full guardianship. Your complaint gets dismissed. Everything stops. The evaluation was scheduled for 4 days from now, same day as my first supervised visit with Helen. What's on the test? Memory assessment, cognitive function, psychological stability. And I was 68 years old. Hadn't slept more than 2 hours a night in a week. Blood pressure through the roof, hands shaking from stress. How was I supposed to pass a cognitive test? Paul, what happens to Helen if I fail? Silence. Then, The protocol continues. I drove back to Martha's. She took one look at me and sat me down. Blood pressure? I showed her the monitor. She made a sound in her throat and went to get my pills. I had forgotten to take them for 2 days. You're going to stroke out, Earl. That's exactly what they want. You dead, David in control, Helen defenseless. I don't know what to do. My voice cracked. I can't get to her. Can't afford a lawyer. Can't even think straight anymore. I put my head in my hands. 40 years, working in a machine shop, fixing things that were broken. And I couldn't fix this. Martha pulled up a chair, sat close. Listen to me. You're not old, you're experienced. You're not confused, you're being gaslit, and you're not alone. She grabbed my hand. We have 5 days before that evaluation. 5 days to get you healthy enough to pass it. And we have 8 days before the medical board hearing. Helen might not have 8 days. Then we make sure she does. Rebecca's buying time. Paul's working the legal angles. Dolores is organizing the other families. She squeezed my hand hard. But you have to stay alive and sane. That's your job right now. Eat, sleep, take your pills, pass that evaluation. What if I can't? Then we've already lost. That night, I slept. Martha's guest room, door open so she could check on me. I took my blood pressure medication, ate the soup she made, slept 8 hours straight for the first time in a week. When I woke up, there were missed calls, 17 from David. I didn't listen to the voicemails, but there was one text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Brennan, this is Gary from the pharmacy. I'm willing to testify about prescription irregularities. Attached is my statement. 3 pages. Detailed documentation of falsified orders, medication substitutions, billing fraud. Martha came in with coffee. I showed her the text. People are stepping up, she said. The question is, are you going to let their courage mean something? Or are you going to give up? I looked at her, at this 72-year-old woman who'd been fighting for 5 years, who'd lost her daughter and turned grief into a weapon. I'm not giving up. Good, she smiled. Because tomorrow, we start preparing you for that evaluation. And Paul called, he needs you to come to his office. He's found 3 more families willing to testify. Saturday came. My supervised visit, 30 minutes. The security guard walked me to Helen's room. Stood outside the door. Timer started. Helen was unconscious. More tubes than before. The machines beeped steadily. Her face was pale, sunken. I took her hand. Her wedding ring loose on her finger now. She'd lost weight. Helen, I squeezed gently. Honey, it's me. Nothing. I sat there for 28 minutes, holding her hand, talking to her about the farm, about the tomatoes I'd plant in spring, about Martha's coffee and how it was almost as good as hers. At minute 29, her eyes opened, just barely, struggling through the fog. Earl, I'm here. I'm right here. Her grip tightened, weak but deliberate. Don't let them... The door opened. Different nurse. Syringe ready. Time for her medication. She just woke up. Give us a minute. Doctor's orders. She needs rest. Helen's eyes were on mine, pleading. The nurse injected it into the IV. Within seconds, Helen's eyes started to close. Earl, her voice fading. Fight. Then she was gone again, back into that chemical sleep. The security guard. Time's up, Mr. Brennan. I left her there. Walked out with my hands and fists and my heart in pieces. In the parking lot, I checked my blood pressure. 160/98. Better. Not good, but better. I could do this. I had to. 4 more days until the evaluation. 8 until the hearing. I just had to hold on. Martha's kitchen looked like a war room. 8 women from her bridge club, all of them between 68 and 81, sitting around the table with folders and laptops and decades of combined righteous anger. Bea had brought documentation on her nephew, who died 3 years ago. Louise had her sister's case from 2 years back. Every single one of them had the same trial name buried in the consent forms. MedTech Solutions Protocol 7. Carol's husband died in September, Dolores said, spreading out another obituary. Same cardiac wing, same impossible test results, same cremation within 48 hours. Paul Dykstra arrived at noon with actual good news for once. The medical board moved up the hearing 4 days from now instead of 8. They're taking this seriously. He set his briefcase on the table. I've issued subpoenas for hospital records, pharmaceutical billing, death certificates. They can't stonewall anymore. Will it be in time? I asked. Rebecca says Helen's on an accelerated protocol now. Heavy sedation. But if we can get an emergency injunction at the hearing, we can stop treatment immediately. Martha poured coffee for everyone. That percolator had been working overtime for 3 days straight. We've got 9 families willing to testify, she said. All elderly patients. All the same trial. All dead within 3 weeks of starting treatment. Paul opened his laptop, showed us the numbers. In the past 3 years, Dr. Reeves has billed $1.2 million in fraudulent treatment charges. The pattern is undeniable. My phone buzzed. Email notification. I opened it. From Land. Developer at redevelopment.com to David.Brennan at CC Stephanie Brennan at Subject. Closing schedule. Brennan property. Payment schedule attached. $180,000 upon death certificate. Additional $400,000 at closing March 15th. S. Brennan consulting fee $50,000 per contract terms. They'd accidentally sent it to me instead of David. I showed Paul. He read it twice. Forward that to me. That's conspiracy to commit fraud. Financial motive documented. Martha looked at the email over my shoulder. They're not even hiding it anymore. They think you're powerless. Maybe I am. Bull. She jabbed a finger at me. You filed the complaint. You got Paul involved. You brought these families together. You're a 70-year-old man going up against a hospital, and you're still standing? 68. Even better. You're not even that old yet. She smiled. Now eat something. Your evaluation is tomorrow. That evening, Rebecca showed up at Martha's back door. She looked terrible. Eyes red, hands shaking worse than mine. They fired me, she said. HR called me in this morning. Suspended pending investigation. They're claiming I stole confidential records. Martha pulled her inside, sat her down, fed her. They're going to press criminal charges, Rebecca said. HIPAA violations, theft, maybe felony charges. Paul, I looked at him. Whistleblower protections are limited. If the hospital wants to make an example. He trailed off. Didn't need to finish. Rebecca was crying now. I have nursing school loans, no savings. I'll never work in healthcare again. I thought about my own son, who'd chosen money over his mother. And here was this 28-year-old woman who'd risked everything for a stranger. I promise you, I said. When this is over, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. The right people, the ones who matter. That doesn't pay my rent, Mr. Brennan. No, but it's the truth. And sometimes that's all we've got. Martha put her arm around Rebecca. You can stay here as long as you need. And when this goes to hearing, your testimony will end Dr. Reeves' career. That's not nothing. Paul cleared his throat. Rebecca, I can offer limited whistleblower protection. It's not much, but it's something. And your testimony is crucial. Without an inside medical professional, the hospital can claim Earl misunderstood everything. Well, they'll destroy me. They'll try, but we'll fight back. She wiped her eyes, nodded. Okay, I'll testify. But, Mr. Brennan, Helen doesn't have much time. They've doubled her sedation since I got fired. The night nurse who replaced me doesn't question anything. 4 days until the hearing. How much sedation could Helen survive? The next morning, I went to my court-ordered psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Sarachin's office was in a building next to the hospital. Professional, calm. She had kind eyes, which surprised me. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to ask you some questions. There are no right or wrong answers. Just answer honestly. We started with easy stuff. Name, date, current president. Then memory tests, word lists, number sequences. I struggled with repeating numbers backward. My mind kept jumping to Helen, to the hearing, to everything. Take your time, Dr. Chen said. My mind's not what it was. Neither is mine. You're doing fine. Cognitive puzzles. Pattern recognition. My machinist brain kicked in for those. Spatial reasoning, I understood. Tolerances and fits. Then she asked about the complaint. Why do you believe the hospital falsified your wife's records? I explained, methodically. The test results that didn't make sense. The trial that wasn't registered. The pattern of deaths. The obituaries. The insurance fraud. Gave her dates, names, document numbers. She took notes. Her expression stayed neutral. Mr. Brennan, you've been under enormous stress. How are you sleeping? Not well. Are you taking your medications? Now I am. I forgot for a while. Do you feel your complaint is justified? Or is it possible you've misunderstood the medical situation? I looked at her straight. Doctor, 14 people died. Same wing, same doctor, same fake trial. My son is waiting for my wife to die so he can sell my farm. That's not stress talking. That's just what's happening. 2 hours. When it ended, she said, I'll file my report with the court tomorrow. I couldn't read her face. That night, Martha got a call from her friend who worked at the courthouse. Earl's evaluation came back. Dr. Chen found him competent, recommended the complaint proceed. I sat down hard, one barrier down. But the next morning, the hospital filed an emergency motion. Patient transfer authorization. They wanted to move Helen to a specialized cardiac facility 2 hours away, before the hearing. Paul called at 3 p.m. They're trying to move her out of jurisdiction. If Helen leaves this county, my investigation loses its primary victim. The evidence chain breaks. Can they just move her? David has power of attorney. The hospital has transfer authority. Legally, yes. What do I do? We need an emergency injunction. Today, there's a hearing slot at 4:30. Can you get to the courthouse? It was 3:47. I'll be there. We made it to the courthouse at 4:23. Paul, Martha, me, and Rebecca. The same judge who'd granted David's original restriction order. Judge Martinez looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. David was already there with his lawyer. Stephanie beside him in a dark suit, hospital badge removed, but professional armor still in place. The hospital's legal team took up half the courtroom. 3 lawyers in expensive suits. Your Honor, their lead attorney started. Mrs. Brennan requires specialized cardiac care, unavailable at our facility. This transfer is medically necessary. The transfer is strategically timed, Paul interrupted. Tomorrow morning, the medical board holds a hearing on fraud allegations against Dr. Reeves. Moving the patient out of jurisdiction undermines that investigation. That's speculation, Your Honor. Your client is under investigation for insurance fraud and medical malpractice. Paul opened his briefcase, pulled out the evidence. 14 deaths in 3 years, all elderly patients. All billed under a trial that doesn't exist. The judge looked up. Doesn't exist? MedTech Solutions Protocol 7 is not registered with the FDA, not approved by any IRB. It's fabricated, Your Honor. David's lawyer stood. My client has legal authority as power of attorney. His mother's medical needs supersede. His mother's estate supersedes, you mean? I stood up. Couldn't help it. My son has a closing scheduled March 15th to sell my farm. Gets $180,000 when she dies. That's in writing. The judge looked at David. Mr. Brennan, do you financially benefit from your mother's estate? David hesitated. His lawyer whispered something. That pause was everything. Your Honor, estate planning is yes or no, Mr. Brennan. Do you stand to gain financially from your mother's death? The farm is family property. Eventually, yes, but... The courtroom doors opened. Dolores walked in, then Bea, Louise, Carol, 3 other women I didn't know, all of them elderly, all of them carrying folders. They filled the gallery, silent, watching. Judge Martinez noticed. Are these people connected to this case? Dolores stood. My husband died in that cardiac wing, Your Honor. Same trial Mr. Brennan's talking about, same lies. Louise, my sister, 2 years ago. One by one, they identified themselves, family after family, the pattern visible to everyone now. The judge's expression changed. He looked at the hospital lawyers, then at David, then at me. Transfer denied. Mrs. Brennan stays at the current facility pending investigation. He looked at the hospital's lead attorney. And counselor, tell your client I expect full cooperation with the medical board. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor. Brennan, Earl Brennan, your access restrictions are lifted pending tomorrow's hearing. You may visit your wife. The gavel came down. David tried to intercept me on the courthouse steps. Dad, please. I walked past him, didn't even slow down. The medical board hearing started at 10 a.m. the next morning. Different room, 5 board members sitting at a long table, cameras in the back, a reporter from the local paper. Paul presented the opening, the pattern, the evidence, the USB drive's contents projected on a screen for everyone to see. I testified first, told them about the barred door, the impossible test results, the consent forms I'd signed without understanding. Cross-examination from the hospital lawyer. Mr. Brennan, isn't it possible you simply don't understand complex medical terminology? I understand numbers that don't make sense. I understand a trial that doesn't exist. I understand my wife getting worse, not better. And Rebecca testified next. Showed the side-by-side charts, real versus falsified. Her voice shook, but her facts were solid. These patients weren't being treated. They were being managed toward death. Sedatives and placebos billed as experimental medication. And the hospital lawyer went after her hard. You stole confidential records. You're facing criminal charges. Why should this board believe anything you say? Because 14 people are dead, and I watched it happen. Gary the pharmacist testified. Showed internal emails where he'd flagged prescription irregularities to hospital administration. They'd been ignored. Dolores testified, then Bea, then Louise. One by one, the families told their stories. Same trial, same timeline, same outcome. The financial analyst Paul had hired showed the billing pattern, revenue optimization, deaths correlating with quarterly budget cycles. Dr. Reeves received consulting fees totaling $340,000 over 3 years. The hospital collected $1, $2 million in fraudulent insurance payments. Then they called Dr. Reeves. He walked in like he owned the place, confident, professional. That same expensive watch catching the light. These patients were terminal. Treatment was experimental but medically sound. Was the treatment FDA approved? A board member asked. Internal Review Board approved. Your hospital doesn't have an IRB. We checked. Silence. Dr. Reeves, did you fabricate test results to justify experimental treatment? I used clinical judgment to interpret. Yes or no, doctor. The confident mask cracked. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. I modified some readings to meet trial criteria. The room went silent. You modified readings? Yes. You falsified medical records. I wouldn't characterize. How would you characterize it, doctor? He didn't answer. Then Paul showed the emails, the coordination with Stephanie, the billing codes, David's name on revenue projections. Mr. David Brennan was copied on documents showing his mother's projected death date and corresponding insurance payout. He was aware of and participating in this scheme. David stood up in the gallery. That's not, I never, but his face said everything. The panel deliberated for 18 minutes. Verdict. Dr. Marcus Reeves's medical license is suspended immediately pending criminal investigation. The hospital is placed under medical board supervision. All experimental trial protocols are terminated effective now. We're referring this matter to the State Attorney General for criminal prosecution. It was over. But when we got to the hospital, rushing to Helen's room, a different doctor was there, brought in by the medical board, removing her from the protocol. Mr. Brennan, he said gently, your wife is in severe organ decline. The sedatives, the lack of actual treatment, there's been significant damage. Can you fix it? We're providing real palliative care now. But sir, she may only have days, maybe a week. I'm very sorry. I sat beside Helen's bed. They were reducing the sedation, stopping the placebos, actually treating her pain instead of manufacturing it. 2 days later, her eyes opened. Really opened. Focused on me. Earl? I'm here, honey. I'm here. She smiled, weak but real. You fought. I did. That's good. Her hand found mine. That's my Earl. We had 5 more days. 5 days where I never left her side. Where the hospital gave me a cot in her room. Where Martha and Rebecca visited. Where we talked about 44 years and tomato plants and how much we'd loved each other. David never came. On a Tuesday morning, with February sun coming through the window, Helen squeezed my hand one last time. Thank you, she whispered, for fighting, for us. Then her breathing slowed and stopped. Martha and Rebecca were there. The chaplain came. Kind and quiet, I held Helen's hand as it cooled, our wedding rings touching. 44 years, it wasn't enough, would never be enough, but I'd been there. She'd known. And in the end, that was everything. The funeral was small. 27 people in the little church where Helen had been on the quilting circle for 15 years. Martha sat in the front row beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. Family. Rebecca came, but stayed in the back. Professional distance, even now. But she'd sent flowers with a note. She knew you fought. That matters. Dolores and the Bridge Club women scattered throughout the church, Bea and Louise sitting together, each one representing a family who'd lost someone to Dr. Reeves's greed. Gary the pharmacist came. Maria, from the hospital cafeteria. The security guard who'd been kind even when enforcing cruel orders. Paul Dykstra in a dark suit, sitting quietly in the middle. One pew stayed empty, reserved. David and Stephanie never showed. The pastor knew Helen, had known her for years. His words were simple, honest. Helen Brennan was a woman of quiet strength. She made quilts for babies in the hospital nursery. She baked cookies for church fundraisers. She was married to Earl for 44 years, and their love was the kind that endures. He paused. She died as she lived, with dignity, surrounded by people who truly loved her, and knowing her husband had fought for what was right. I couldn't speak, couldn't trust my voice. Just nodded when people filed past. Handshakes, hugs, quiet words. Dolores stopped. Gerald Stone is 2 rows over in the cemetery. Helen will have good company. After I drove past the hospital. Construction signs were up. Cardiac wing renovation, patient safety improvements, and a new sign by the entrance. Patient Family Advocate Office. Your voice matters. Small changes. Not enough, but something. 2 weeks after the funeral, Paul stopped by the farm. Legal outcomes, he said, sitting at my kitchen table. Dr. Reeves's license is permanently revoked. Criminal charges filed. Insurance fraud, medical malpractice, conspiracy, 14 counts. Trials scheduled for next year, but his lawyers are negotiating a plea. Prison time? Likely. 5 to 10 years if he pleads. I nodded. Didn't feel like victory. Just felt like the truth had finally caught up. Stephanie pleaded guilty. Testified against Reeves and the hospital administration. Got 18 months. Restitution payments. Permanent healthcare industry ban. And David? Paul was quiet for a moment. Under investigation. Insurance fraud, conspiracy, elder abuse charges are possible, Might avoid prison if he cooperates, but his career is done. I'm not pressing charges, I said. Let the system decide. That's generous. It's not generous. It's just, I looked out the window at the farm. He's already lost what matters. Paul stood to leave, then paused. The hospital settled 11 wrongful death lawsuits. Undisclosed amounts, but the families got justice. And compensation. He put his hand on my shoulder. You did that, Earl. You started it. After he left, I found a letter in the mailbox. No return address. Handwritten. Dear Mr. Brennan, you don't know me. My mother was admitted to the cardiac wing last month. The new family advocate office questioned the treatment protocol. We got a second opinion. Different diagnosis entirely. She was transferred and successfully treated. She's alive because policy changed. Policy changed because you fought. I'm sorry about your wife. I'm grateful for your courage. My mother's 73. She's coming to Easter dinner. Thank you. A daughter who still has her mom. I read it 3 times, folded it carefully, put it in the drawer with Helen's wedding ring and her death certificate. Things worth keeping. Martha found me that afternoon staring at that drawer. You okay, Earl? Helen's been gone 3 weeks. David's been gone longer. The house is quiet. Too quiet. Just quiet. She squeezed my shoulder. Come over for dinner tonight. I made pot roast. Martha, 6 p.m. Don't be late. I went. Ate her pot roast, drank her coffee, sat on her porch afterward watching the sunset over the farm. What happens now? I asked. Now you live. You plant those tomatoes you keep talking about. You let yourself heal. You remember Helen without it destroying you. That's a lot. It's enough. When spring came slowly that year, but it came. The snow melted. The ground thawed. I bought tomato seedlings from the garden center. Big Boy and Cherokee Purple, like I'd planned. Martha helped me plant them. We worked in comfortable silence. Dirt under our nails, sun on our faces. Rebecca called from her new hospital 2 hours away. I got the job. They knew about the testimony. Hired me anyway. Said they needed nurses with backbone. Told you, I said. The right people would know. David never called, never wrote. The farm stayed in my name. His lawyer sent papers a month later, relinquishment of any claim to the property. Not an apology, just stopping. Some things broken stay broken, but some things grow anyway. Saturday morning in late March, I was sorting through mail at the kitchen table when I found it. A handwritten envelope, local postmark, no return address. Inside was a 3-page letter on lined paper, the kind kids use in school. Dear Mr. Brennan, you don't know me. My mother was hospitalized last month in the cardiac wing. Dr. Chen, one of the new doctors they brought in, recommended a treatment protocol, but because of the new family advocate office, I was able to question it, ask for details, get a second opinion. My coffee had gone cold. I kept reading. The second opinion revealed a different diagnosis entirely. Treatable, not terminal. My mother was transferred to a different facility. She's recovering now. The doctor said if we'd followed the original protocol, she probably wouldn't have survived. The handwriting got shakier here, like the writer had been crying. I researched what happened. Found the news articles about your case, about your wife. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm grateful for your courage. My mother is 73 years old. Because you fought, because you wouldn't stay silent, she's going to be at Easter dinner next month. She'll meet her first grandchild this summer. She'll have years she wouldn't have had. It was signed simply, a daughter who still has her mom. Thank you. I sat there for a long time, holding that letter, thinking about Helen, about the 14 families who'd lost people, about Mrs. Chen in room 407 who died while I was locked out, but also about this woman's mother, about the policies that changed, about the family advocate office with its small sign by the hospital entrance. Martha found me still sitting there an hour later. Earl, you okay? I showed her the letter. She read it twice, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Helen would be proud, she said. Doesn't bring her back. No, but it means she didn't die for nothing. You made sure of that. I found myself writing a response that afternoon. First letter I'd written since Helen died. Dear friend, thank you for writing. I'm glad your mother is well. Visit her often. Call her every week. Don't assume you have unlimited time, because none of us do. I had 44 years with my wife. It wasn't enough. It never would have been. But I'm grateful for every day. Take care of your mom. And tell her a stubborn old man in Pennsylvania is glad she's going to see her grandchild. Earl Brennan, I mailed it the next day. That evening, I was sorting through Helen's belongings, her clothes for donation, her jewelry for keeping. I found an old photo album, the kind with the sticky pages and plastic covers that yellowed over time. David as a baby, David as a child, David's high school graduation, our family at the farm, all of us young and smiling like we'd live forever. Martha came over with coffee and found me looking at those pictures. You going to reach out to him? She asked. He knows where I am. What if he calls? Then I'll answer. Once. But I won't beg for my son back, won't chase him. That's fair. I closed the album. Put it in a box with David's childhood drawings, his report cards, his Little League trophies. Carried it up to the attic. If he ever comes back, really back, not just wanting something, it'll be here, I said. But I'm not sitting on the porch waiting for him. No, Martha said. You've got tomatoes to tend. Weeks passed. The garden grew. I fell into a routine. Morning coffee watching the sunrise, farm work, lunch, usually at Martha's, or her at mine. Afternoon projects, early bed, church on Sundays, hardware store on Saturdays. The same life I'd lived with Helen, just quieter now. One morning in early April, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Miss Brennan, this is Rebecca from the hospital. Rebecca, how are you? Oh, good, really good. The new hospital it's what nursing should be, patients actually getting treated. She paused. I wanted to tell you, I got a letter this week from Mrs. Chen's daughter. Mrs. Chen, room 407. The woman who died while I was fighting to see Helen. She said her mother's case helped the investigation. The medical board used it as evidence of the pattern, and she wanted me to know that her mom's death led to the reforms, that it mattered. I looked out the window at the tomato plants, still small but growing. It all matters, I said, even the losses, especially those. After we hung up, I walked the property line. 120 acres. Still Brennan land, no for sale sign, never would be. My father had died on this land, my grandfather, before him. Helen and I had built our life here. David had grown up playing in these fields. Now it was just me. But that was okay. Some things you hold on to, not because they're profitable, but because they're yours. That afternoon, a legal envelope arrived. David's name on the return address. Inside was a single document. Formal relinquishment of any claim to the farm. Signed and notarized. No letter, no apology. Just the paperwork. Martha was there when I opened it. That means something to you? Means he's done taking. Doesn't mean he's sorry. You okay with that? I looked at the paper for a long time. I'll take it. Not reconciliation, just stopping. Some peace is just the absence of war. I filed the document with the rest of the legal papers. Closed the drawer. David had made his choice. I'd made mine. And life went on anyway. The tomatoes grew. The corn came up. Martha helped me plant zucchini, even though I warned her we'd have more than we could eat by August. Good, she said. I'll make bread for the whole bridge club. We worked side by side in comfortable silence. Two old people refusing to surrender to age or grief or the cruelty of systems bigger than themselves. That evening, sitting on my porch with coffee, I thought about Helen. About 44 years that ended in a hospital room but were built in moments like this. Sunrise and tomato plants and the simple act of continuing. My phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca. Settled in. Patients here actually get better. Thank you for everything, Mr. Brennan. You taught me courage has gray hair. I smiled. Typed back, well, you earned your career. Be proud. And Rebecca, your grandfather would be proud too. The sun set over the farm. Cardinals sang in the trees. Spring was here, and I'd survived the winter. Not happy, not healed, but here. Present. Continuing. And sometimes that's enough. I'm sitting on my porch this morning, first week of April, drinking coffee from Helen's favorite mug. Took me 3 weeks before I could use it. Kept washing it and putting it back in the cabinet like maybe she'd need it again, but she's gone. And the mug's just a mug. Using it doesn't dishonor her memory. Letting it sit empty would. The sun's coming up over 120 acres that's been Brennan land since 1947. My grandfather's farm. My father died in the bedroom upstairs. Helen and I raised our son here, back when he was still ours. Some things stay in families. Some things get lost along the way. The tomato seedlings are in the kitchen window, green shoots reaching toward light. Martha's coming by later to help transplant them to the garden. She does that now, shows up most days with coffee or casseroles or just company. Chosen family, I guess you'd call it. The kind you build when blood disappoints you. My wedding ring's on a chain around my neck now. 44 years of scratches catching the morning light. I talk to Helen sometimes, out loud, when nobody's around. Don't get answers, but don't need them. The conversation itself is the point. Rebecca sends pictures from her new hospital, patients smiling, families together, small victories that add up to something. Paul called last week with an update. More reforms, more families getting justice. The ripples spreading outward from one stubborn old man who wouldn't shut up when they told him to. I'm 68 years old, my knees ache, my back's stiff. My son's gone, and my wife's dead, and sometimes the loneliness sits so heavy I can barely breathe. But I'm here, I survived. And come summer, there'll be tomatoes. Helen used to say, love isn't just the beautiful moments. It's fighting for dignity when it would be easier to surrender. It's standing up when your knees hurt. It's planting seeds even when you're tired. She was right about that. She was right about most things. The coffee's good. The morning's cold but brightening. Martha's truck just pulled into the driveway. We've got work to do. And that, it turns out, is enough. If you're reading this and you've got people you love, elderly parents, aging neighbors, anyone vulnerable to systems that see them as profit centers instead of human beings, pay attention. Ask questions. Don't trust authority just because it wears a white coat. And if you've got time left with the people who raised you, don't waste it. I'd give everything I own for one more morning with Helen. Arguing about tomato spacing and drinking coffee that's gone cold while we talked, you don't get those days back. So if you've still got them, for God's sake, don't let them go.